We are live. Hang on a second, folks. I am trying to get a hold of Mr. Spags. Let's see what we got going on here. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Hopefully Mr. Spags comes back in. So it is 11/29/22. And if there's anybody out there, go ahead and give me a 5x5 so I know that you're there. I had Mr. Spags in the studio, or in the back studio, but his thing was locking up. Give me a second, folks. There you go. Naughty's here. Like I was saying, I had Spags on this on the panel here, but his internet was locking up. He's out in the country, so that we were afraid that's going to happen. I just tried calling him and didn't get an answer. So maybe he's rebooting his internet or something. But like I was saying, it's deer season eve, and the idea behind this is that every year, the night before firearms season started over in Missouri, me and my hunting buddies would gather in one of the garages, and we would drink some beer, drink some whiskey, smoke some cigars. Jonathan doesn't have any deer stories offhand, but he's got more dishes to wash. But we would sit around and we'd tell each other what great hunters we were. We'd call each other liars and just have a grand old time. We'd start as soon as work was over, and we'd be done by about 8 o'clock, 8:30, and we would head home, and then we'd be out at the deer condo at like 4:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. And let me do this. So if you would like to be up on the panel, try that link. I think that's the link. But try that link. You can come up on and we'll get you up on the channel. All that I ask is just remember that this is showing on YouTube, and we want to make sure that we're not getting sideways with them. If you're here watching this, please understand these stories are going to involve alcohol. They're going to involve hunting. They're going to involve killing things, and subjects that people might find unenjoyable or objectionable. Not questionable, because I didn't do anything. Starless Spags was here. He lost his connection. I am trying to get a hold of him, and not having any luck. Give me a second. Let me see if he's still there. I know he saw me because he gave me a hand gesture, but then he cut out. But it's one of the hazards of living out in the country and being out in the country. You don't get signal. So tonight, I am indulging. It's a tradition, just like the Marine Corps birthday. I am not going to let it slide by. But tonight, I am indulging in some behind bars whiskey. Not my normal bourbon. I usually drink J.W. Dant, bottled and bond. But I really didn't want to use that tonight, so I got this. So I'm drinking a little bit of the behind bars whiskey, which I found to be pretty good. And if I remember correctly, it's made in Hutchinson, Kansas. So if you're local around here, you can find it pretty easily. So anyway, deer season eve, and if you've got a hunting story or anything, and you don't want to be up on the panel, just put it down there where is it? That way, over there. Put it there in the chat, and we'll talk about it. Naughty Heathen says he's a Wild Turkey 101 fan myself. You know what, Naughty? I had a very bad incident with wild turkey when I was in college, and I still cannot stand the taste of that stuff. I tried and tried and tried. Okay, here's a hunting story. Here's a hunting story that involves alcohol. But so we would go over to my buddy's place. Uh, his name was Louis, and he had a kick-ass garage, man. He had a wood stove in there, and it was a big 2-car affair, and you could fit. 20 years ago, we used to put 15, 20 people in this thing. Would stop by like on deer season eve and then opening day. That thing would be packed. Everybody from the area would show up there, and towards the end, not so many people. But we're over there on deer season eve one night, and I was a little short on cash. So I got a brand of whiskey called Evan Williams, and Evan Williams is not a very good brand. It's not. Well, I'm drinking it, and I'm like, yeah, this is all I could afford this time. So I'm drinking, and I'm talking about Evan Williams and stuff, and he just starts getting madder and madder and madder as the night goes on. He gets some beer in him, and he's getting madder, and he's getting mad at me, and I turn to my buddy. I'm like, what did I do? What did I do? And so Louis finally storms out of the garage for a little bit. And my buddy and his uncle turn around at me and they go, dude, his ran off with a guy named Evan Williams. And so Louis came back. I apologized to him, and he said, oh, it's okay. He got over it. Yeah, but I didn't realize it, but he was very upset at me there that evening. You know what? But the guys I used to hunt with were great guys. One of them was an old school biker. The other one the other one's like a brother to me. I'm not going to mention. Well, I already mentioned Louis' name. And Bill was like a brother to me. He still is. We don't talk as much since I moved, but he's still like a brother to me. In fact, they went hunting last weekend, the weekend before Thanksgiving, because it was opening day in Kansas. They shot a couple of 6-pointers, and him and another guy that I know, and he made it sound like they were scrub bucks, but they were decent looking 6-pointers. I mean, I wouldn't complain about them. They put food in the freezer. And then the other guy we hunted with was Uncle Kelly, and Uncle Kelly. Imagine Cy from Duck Dynasty. Uncle Kelly was Cy with Duck Dynasty, only he excessively smoked, he excessively drank, and he cursed like a sailor on payday. So that's what it was like. And God, we used to have so much fun. We hunted in a place in Cass County that was up on the edge of the urban zone in Kansas City, and it was on this ridge. We would hunt off this ridge. Ran to the south end of the property, and the deer would come up that creek, and they would come up a draw next to the bean field, and then come into the bean field and eat. And the average shot there was anywhere from 50 yards out to 300, and it was just a really good property. And then about 5 or 6 years after I started hunting with these guys, they built what we call the deer condo. And the deer condo is literally, you can literally see it on Google Earth. It's that big. It's the only deer blind in the state of Missouri that we know for a fact has a address in Pizza Hut. And so it was a 10 by 10 shack built on top of railroad ties, or not railroad ties, telephone poles. And so we would hunt out of that, and we took all kinds of deer from that place. And it was just such a good hunting property. Even today, even with all the changes that have happened, it's become more urbanized out there. Even today, they're still pulling really nice deers out there. Chat kind of slowed down. Did I lose everybody? Am I still connected? Give me a 5x5 if I'm still there, if I'm talking to myself. This is on StreamYard. It's only the second time I've done StreamYard, so we're kind of running on learning curve here. But here, I know how to check it. But anyway, so the property, and it was a good property. It had been in his family for a long time, and we did a little bit of improvement to it to make it so the deer found it more enjoyable. Okay, let's see here. Let's go to this. I'm not getting any 5x5, so I'm not sure I'm talking to anybody. Okay, Jonathan says he can hear me. You guys scared me there for a little bit. Anyway, so the deer used to go up there, and then 71 highway runs south out of Kansas City, and it goes right like a mile east of that hunting property. And they put barriers up on the highway. The deer used to just run across the highway, and hey, Sharon, and they would go up the creek, and they put that barrier up. And what it did was it forced the deer to jump over the barrier. Well, the road was so close to it that they would hit the concrete and they'd start sliding. So they didn't like that. So it went from them crossing from like a 5 mile stretch of road down to crossing where these two bridges were. So it really limited the east-west migration of the deer. So a lot of big bucks decided to stay on the east side of the highway, and some of them come up on the other side. But you could shoot 360 degrees out of it. We'd have 4 or 5 people in this place, and God, it was such a blast. You know, everybody had their own window, and mine was facing to the northeast, and I could shoot 400 yards in one direction, although I never took a shot that long, and about 280 yards in the other direction. And I took some pretty. I never took a big buck out of that window. I took one out of one of the other windows. You could shoot 300 yards out of the opposite window, and probably 150 out of the side windows. And they would come out of the brush out of a junkyard to the north, or they would come up the draw from the south, or they would come up. There was another draw to the northeast that they would come straight at me, you know. And I missed my first buck. I missed my first big buck out of one of the windows. And to this day, that was almost 20 years ago, and I still catch grief from these guys about it, because this buck came out and he was huge. He was a monster 10-pointer. And I got the shakes. I'm not going to lie, I got the shakes. I took 3 shots at him, and none of them were further than 150 yards. I shot at him, he went away, and he came back, and I shot at him again, and he went away, and he came back a third time, and I shot at him, and he left for the day. And so I admit it, I had deer fever. I completely blew the shots. Decided after that I was going to practice more often, and I was going to ensure that my rifle was zeroed in properly before every deer season, which there's a story about that this year that I'll tell here in a little bit. But yeah, I missed it, and I caught so much grief for that. But that's not the worst. That's not the worst big buck story I've got. So I never hunted for bucks. I was always, for the long, until I put my wall hanger up 5 years ago, I think. Up until that point, if it was a buck or a doe, I did not care. All I wanted was food in the freezer. And so I bought a shotgun, and I put a slug barrel on it, had it zeroed in. It was good out to 100 yards, could hold a 3-inch group at 100 yards with 12 gauge slugs, which is pretty darn good. Had it with me. I brought it with me that day, and I had my M1. I had an M1 with a scope on it that I was using for hunting longer distances that year. And the day before, it's open season on coyotes during deer season, because what'll happen is the coyotes will start bird dogging the deer. They'll eat the fawns, and they just cause all kinds of problems. So we had this rule that if a coyote showed up during deer season, it was legal. It was legal hunting at that time. You know, we would take him out. So a coyote showed up, and I lined up on it, and I pulled the trigger, and I hear clunk. Checked the shell. I take another shot, missed him. He got away. But I picked the shell up, and it was a dud. It had a primer strike on it, and it didn't go off. So we always clean up our brass. So I took this shell and I stuck it in my pocket. Next morning, you unload your rifle at the end of the night. Next morning, we get there. I'm loading my rifle. I had a bunch of shells in my pocket. I load my shells up, not thinking. You can see where this is going, but it gets worse. The actual details, much, much worse. So anyway, the next morning, we're sitting there. The sun had come up. It was probably 7 o'clock in the morning. It was just coming up. gorgeous day, clear as a bell. You can see, you got no haze in your scope. It's just awesome, perfect hunting day. This buck comes out. And it was this. We could tell by the genetics that it was one of the offspring of the big buck that I had shot at before, because they all look the same. All these bucks in this area, they're like three major bucks in this area, and the antlers and the genetics on all the deer, all the bucks, you could tell who the granddaddy was. Anyway, this deer comes trotting up straight at us, beeline. Had no idea we were there. This thing gets up, and it's no more than 15 yards away from us in the deer condo, and it's facing me sideways. It was so close to us that when I, looking through the scope, I could see the fur on the side of the animal. And I go, click. I had stuck that damn round at the top of the magazine. Well, when that hammer fell, that buck jumped about 6 feet straight up in the air and took off in the opposite direction. Took off. I'm down on my knee, cursing and racking the gun, trying to get a fresh round in there. By the time I get back up onto the target, he's gone. I didn't have a chance to shoot him. And I was cursing. Bill was on the other end, and Kelly was there too. They were just laughing their butts off at me. And I felt terrible. And so I'm sitting there moping. I'm looking out the back window, and he comes back. This deer comes back, and he comes straight at us again. There must have been a door or something on the other side of the ridge he was trying to get to, because he comes straight at us again. And this time, I pick up my shotgun. It's racked. It's loaded. I'm waiting for him to get within a decent range, 40, 50 yards. I'm lining up on him, and all of a sudden we hear, "Brrr!" My buddy's brother-in-law comes out in his rat trap Ford pickup truck, barreling across the lane between these two fields, just making all kinds of noise, and scared the deer away. I could have killed him. Okay, I just got a message from Spag. I was just on the call with my family, a video call. The second I jump into your live, my entire phone said no internet. He's not too terrible. He's typing. I can see he's pecking away on his phone right now. But yeah, that deer took off, and we did not see him again the rest of the season. Does anybody got any big buck stories they want to share in chat? Let's see here. There's the StreamYard link. What's this? Here, let me copy that again. Yep, that's the right one. There's the StreamYard link if you want to get into it. It'll show you in the back, I think. I don't know. We'll figure it out. If you get in there and I don't see and I don't say anything, say something to me and we'll figure it out. I'm trying. Let's see. Spag says he's trying to restart his phone 2 times. I was just on a video call. No idea why I can't join. It says internet disconnected. I think the powers that be don't want Spags in on this discussion. I wonder why. I wonder what he's done to upset them. Seems like the hunting gods may be a little mad at him tonight. He says, this is why I don't fear the deep state. They can't even get the internet right. Bada boom. Absolutely. Jonathan says, I never shot a buck, haven't hunted deer since I was a teen. Well, you know what? You're coming back up here sometime. Maybe you come up in the fall and we can do a little hunting together. Let's see here. I need to tell him clear as cash. He is not happy. Not a good way to start the hunting weekend or the hunting week. That's a weird thing. I say the hunting weekend because Missouri always starts their hunting season on the second Saturday of November, or third Saturday of November. Whereas where we live now in Kansas, they start on the last Wednesday of the month of November for the firearm season. And I don't really understand that. In Missouri, it's kids get out of school. In fact, when I was a kid, they actually shut down school. Two times they shut down school for other than holidays. The first one was haying, so the kids could hay, and the second one was the Friday before, or the opening day of deer season, because back then they did it during the week. But yeah, it's a tradition there in Missouri. I don't know why it's not like that here. But so there's my two big buck stories. I'm with Jonathan. I honestly did not. I've not taken many shots at bucks. I think I've taken, out of the 20 years and the 20 some deer I've shot, I'm actually closer to 40 deer I've shot. I probably only shot about 5 or 6 bucks, and only one of them was a keeper. You know. Oh, what do we got? Oh, but you know, so it's for me, it's always been about putting food on the table. You know, I'm not gonna lie. Since I put that wall hanger up, I've waited to take a shot on something. I wanted a big doe or a big buck. You know, I wasn't going to take one of the smaller ones that I used to shoot at. And you know, I'm not going to turn. Whoa, excuse me. I'm not going to turn down a big buck. I mean, I'd like to put another trophy on the wall, but it's not. My life doesn't revolve around it. So these guys that I hunted with, bunch of cretins, bunch of hillbillies. Oh my God, they were so country. They were okay. So two of them were out one night, and they went by this deer that had been hit, or they went by this spot on the road. They were coming back, and there was a dead deer laying on the side of the road, and they're like, "Oh, Spags is in there. Let's see if we can get him into the stream." Okay, Spags, I see you. Hey, take your avatar off, or put your avatar on. Don't do the live feed. Yeah, you're in, but you're all pixelated, and I can't hear it if you're talking. Hang on a second, folks. Send him a message. There, let's see if that works for him. Sometimes, folks, in StreamYard, if you turn the avatar on, it streams better because it's just doing your audio. It's not doing your video. But I think, can you hear me now, Spags? We'll see. We'll let him try to figure that out. We can get him on here if he's got connection. We can get him on here. Where was I? Oh, so they see this deer. They're in a pickup truck. So they pick this deer up and they chuck it in the back of the truck. And they live like two doors down from each other, in this little suburban area. So it's like 3:00 in the morning. They get home. They're both schnockered. They shouldn't have been driving. They go in the back of the truck. They're going to clean this deer and then get it hanging up. And they go to slit the deer's throat and start skinning it. And the deer wakes up. It was only knocked out. And they had gone to bleed this deer out. And it starts kicking, and it starts. I don't know if you've ever heard a deer that's in distress, but it's not a pleasant sound. This thing was kicking so hard that it poked a hole in the bed of the guy's pickup truck. They ended up getting hanging that night, but they woke the entire neighborhood up. It was like a bizarre scene out of Duck Dynasty, the episode where Jace is butchering the deer in the front yard and the school bus goes by. So yeah, that's the type they were. And you know, they were the type of guys that kept hacksaws during the rut. They keep hacksaws in their vehicles. And if they saw a deer with a nice rack on the side of the road, they'd stop and they'd cut the racks off, or they'd cut the head off and throw it in, and they'd get it mounted. Or the one guy would find sheds and then literally screw the antlers onto a doe skull and hang them up European style. They're a bunch of weird people, seriously, you know. But the guys, those were friends of the guys I hunted with. They weren't my, they were acquaintances of mine. Um, but yeah, so we'd be hunting, and sure enough, this is the way the opening day went. We would get there early. Chances are it'd be colder than snot. We'd sit there freezing our butts off. We had a 20-pound propane cylinder with the big 12-inch heater head on it. We'd fire that thing up, and we'd try to stay warm until we opened the windows up, and it would just be Bill and I in there. And we'd talk and we'd discuss, what we were going to do that day. And then 5 minutes before opening time, here comes Kelly in his old beater vehicle. He always had a beater vehicle. And he always managed to keep them running. I could never figure out how he kept those things running, but he did it. He was a genius at that part of it. I mean, he was a good woodworker too. But he would show up 5 minutes before it was time to start shooting, scare all the deer away. Bill would be mad at him. He'd get up there and like I said, he'd chain smoke. He'd start hacking. Good thing was this thing was so insulated that it would not, if you had the window shut, you couldn't hear outside of it. Deer couldn't hear you. But he would start hacking. So Bill would be cursing at him and telling him to be quiet. And so everything would get settled down, and we'd wait. And a lot of years we'd fill out both our tags. So you get any deer tag and an antlerless tag. And we'd fulfill both our tags, the three of us, by 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. And we'd be basically, you could buy a third any doe tag, and we'd do that sometimes, other times not. But we'd tag out by 8:30. We'd have them hanging up in the tree by 12, and have back straps for lunch, sit there and drink a little bit of beer, go out for the evening hunt if we still had a tag, had that third tag. And it was really great. Kelly's rifle, he was notorious for not having it zeroed. Actually, he would zero it, and then he would knock his scope around and knock it out of zero. And so we were constantly giving him grief about that. But they were all, and Louis was an experienced hunter, Bill and Kelly, they were all really experienced hunters. And they taught me a lot about deer hunting, but they taught me the hard way on some things. So the first 2 or 3 years I hunted, I did not clean a deer. I did not know how to butcher an animal. I was trying to learn about it, but it was just quicker and easier to have them field dress it for me and get it hung up. And then I actually learned how to butcher a deer before I learned how to field dress it. So the third year we're hunting, I shoot this deer. It's a nice doe. And Louie and Kelly were at another spot hunting. And so it was just Bill and I. And I'm like, hey, this is the year I do it. This is the year that I dress out my own deer. So you tell me, you don't help me at all. Tell me if I'm doing anything wrong. Well, all he heard was, don't help me. So I'm on this deer, and I am having a heck of a time getting the esophagus cut, because you get up and you cut the esophagus and everything comes out. And I am just having a terrible time at it. And here come Louie and Kelly, and they drive out in the field, and they pull up, and Louie leans out the truck, and he looks at me. He's got this really southern drawl. He goes, "Why the hell did you not split the breastbone open?" I look up at him, and I am all the way up to here, both arms up inside the chest cavity of this deer. And I've got blood all over my clothes, all over my face. I'm cursing at everything, and just Bill starts laughing his butt off. I'm like, "Oh God, you're such a terrible person, man." Like, I called him some other names, but nothing that I should repeat here. Let's just put it that way. So again, something I catch grief for every year is not knowing how to do a deer. For not splitting the breastbones. And then, the other thing that they taught me was don't let your guard down with these guys. So they would screw with each other. They'd click each other's sight knobs. They do all kinds of stuff. They never got me personally, but I watched them do it to each other constantly. So I learned that, and they were always giving me grief because, you know, I got no hair. And in the evening, the sun would shine off the back of my head and it would glare into the window they were trying to look out. So they were always making fun of me for that. You know, we made fun of Kelly for his smoking and his coughing and not being able to hit a deer. And then Bill's a special animal, man. He had this great big lounge chair. It was a reclining chair that his grandmother had, and he took the base of it off and he put it up on a pedestal so it could spin, and he would sit in this great big chair, and he was the king of the deer condo, and he would take all the big deer. Hey, Kentucky Sustainable, how you doing? But he would take all the big deer, and so it got to the point. It's like watch it, man. Bill's going to push you out of the way to take a shot at the deer, and he used to get so mad at us, and so we always gave him grief about that. Um, what's another story out of the deer condo that I could tell? Oh, so there was a little balcony on the one side where the stairs came up, and you could go out there. You know, we've been drinking coffee, or my thing was hot cocoa or chicken soup or whatever, and you could go out there and relieve yourself. And we're up there one day, and Kelly goes outside to relieve himself, and this deer comes up, and it's a shooter, and I was not thinking. I did not violate any safety rules. Oh, I came within a hair's breadth of violating it, but I didn't violate it completely. But he's out there taking a whiz, and my rifle barrel comes out that window because I'm going to take a shot at this deer, and I'm like 2 feet behind him, and he didn't know it. And I use a 308 bolt action, and I take the shot, and he starts screaming because I scared him, and he peed all over himself because he hit the railing and it splattered all him. So he was mad about that, and I apologized to him, but we gave him a bunch of crap about that, about him peeing all over himself. And that wasn't the worst one. We had a guy, Louis' brother. God, I wish I could remember his name. You know, his fiance at the time comes back to the garage on Saturday afternoon, and we're like, well, where's he at? He said he had to go home. Well, why did he have to go home? He had to go change his shorts because he didn't want to leave the deer stand, and when he was walking out, he ended up having an accident. So he ended up having to go home and change his shorts. You know, and then we were always trying to talk Bill and letting us put a outhouse down underneath the deer condo, so we wouldn't have to go over and use the cold bumper of a truck if we had to relieve ourselves. He would never go for that. I wanted to put solar on that and put one of those portable satellite TVs on it, so we had sports, because at the time we were really into football, and, you know, the Chiefs, and so we would on Sunday we would take a break from hunting and go watch the Chiefs game on Sunday afternoon. That doesn't happen anymore. In fact, I haven't watched the NFL in quite a while. But so that was the thing, and then the whole deer condo having the Pizza Hut address. They were the two acquaintances, Bill's friends, were up there hunting one time, and they got hungry, and so they called Pizza Hut and wanted a pizza delivered. So naturally, Pizza Hut needs an address, so they give them the address of 1 Deer Slayer Lane, and they're like, okay, well, how do we do that? And they said, well, you know where so and so's house is? And they're like, yeah, it's a small town. It was a small town outside of Kansas City, so everybody knew everybody. They're like, yeah, we know where that is. Well, go to their driveway and make a right instead of a left, and come down the lane. You can't miss it. So the Pizza Hut delivery guy literally drove to the steps of the deer condo and delivered them 2 pizzas. And they ate it, so we were able to get pizza out there anytime we wanted. And, you know, as far as food goes out there, Saturday mornings were awesome because Bill's sister lived down at the edge of the property, and on Saturday mornings she would bring us biscuits and gravy. Oh man, every year biscuits, and it was so good. You know, you have some cocoa. They'd have their coffee. We'd get a hot meal of biscuits and gravy at about 9:30. You know, we take a break from hunting. We'd been at it. Shooting time usually at that time of year is like 6 o'clock. So we've been at it for three and a half hours, and so we get hot biscuits and gravy in the condo. Um, we'd go up there. Bill and I were out there one year, and a storm front was rolling in, and we were going through the normal thing. You know, they I don't know if anybody else does this or sees this, but you know they know a lot about hunting. You know, they say the deer are going to move at this time, and they say the deer will do this, and they say and so we're constantly like, who the hell are they, and how do they know what the deer are going to do? So that's the big joke is, you know, well, they say that this front's moving in, so the deer should start moving. Well, anyway, we're in the condo, and we're talking about day because this front's moving in, and you could see the clouds coming in from quite a ways. When it hit us, the winds were like 40 miles an hour, and the deer condo had actually gotten picked up out of the ground and flipped on its side one year because of the winds. So when they put it back up and fixed it, they got these big concrete blocks that weighed about 500 pounds. They got one on each corner, and they strapped it down with 1,800-pound ratchet straps. And those straps, they were humming, they were buzzing. The whole thing was shaking. So we weren't doing any hunting. The rain was coming down in sheets. It finally let up, and we went. Right, actually, I went and got fried chicken. I don't remember what I got, Bill, but I brought back some beer and some peppermint schnapps because we weren't hunting. And we weren't going to be able to hunt the rest of the day. So I figured peppermint schnapps and cocoa on a day like that, sitting in the deer condo with my buddy would be a really great thing to do. And so I ate fried chicken that day and started laying into that schnapps. And the next thing I know, the bottle's empty. And Bill says I was snoring from like 12 o'clock until about 4. Felt great when I woke up though. Just put me to sleep. You know, and that's one thing we had beer in the deer condo, but the rule was if we were hunting, you know, if you were actively shooting, looking for a deer, you didn't drink, you know, because we didn't want. But you know, if you'd already filled out your tags, you know, go ahead and have a beer. You know, never got really. In fact, I'm probably the only person that got really schnockered in that thing when we were hunting with that bottle of schnapps. Not my proudest moment, but it is what it is, you know. Oh my goodness. So I really, if anybody else, I'm going to post this link again. If anybody else wants to come up here, feel free. You just take that link and stick it in your browser, and you'll come into the back studio. I'll see you, and I'll bring you up. I tell you what, if you do come up here, I'm gonna press you on the first big buck you shot, or the first big buck you missed. You know, because everybody's got that big buck story, and everybody lies about it. In fact, I'm probably the only person here that will tell the truth about missing their first buck. I dare you to come up. We're getting kind of tired of talking about myself, so I'm just inviting you guys up. Anyway, you know, it was a great experience. Those guys, I really miss them. We had a guy that came in later on. He's only been hunting with them for 4 or 5 years. Maybe a little bit longer than that. His name is Mark, and he's got his own hunting theory. So we're in the deer condo, and Mark and his son had parked their truck down at the other end of the lane, and they were hunting this really nice spot where the deer would come out and they would graze in the grass right next to the soybean field. And we're watching him. We're watching through binoculars because these deer come out, and we see that we used our trucks as deer blinds. You know, we weren't shooting while they were running. We weren't shooting from a road. But we see the barrel of his gun comes out. Now he's shooting a 400 Magnum. The thing was huge. It was a monster. He pulls the trigger, and this gout of flame about this long come shooting out the end of his gun. And we could hear it like he was sitting right next to us. He was a good 300 yards away. That was the loudest dang gun. And we're watching through the binoculars, and we're like, he must have shot something that was behind the hill, because there's a little, like the lower part of the field you could see from where we were, but there was a little hump in the field that you couldn't see the deer when they were standing there. And he must have shot at something there. And all of a sudden he goes, boom, again. And we're like, what the heck? He shot 5 times before a deer dropped. And when we went down there, we were like, oh man. So we were going to give him grief. We got down there, and these are bucks that the genetics aren't the best. They've got scrawny antlers for their size. They're too old. They're just that their antlers aren't any good. He shot this scrub buck that literally had 5 points on it. So we started giving him grief about his hunting method. Was he was going to use 1 round for every point on the deer. And so I got that little antler set from him, and I mounted it on a little plaque with a nice little velvet thing that you put over the skull cap, and I had a plate made, and I said Mark's hunting method, and I had five empty shell casings mounted around this antler set, and we had an official ceremony, and we gave it to him the next year on opening season or opening weekend. And he was a good sport about it too. That dude makes commercial smokers that are they're the ones that you see that actually have like travel trailers with the back half is a smoker, the front half is where that you sleep and you take your showers and stuff. He built stuff like that, and some of the stuff that he built was phenomenal, just fantastic. And did all kinds of charity work for the VA, smoking brisket for the VA and hosting tailgate parties at Arrowhead Stadium. Yeah, anybody. Yeah, Jonathan, that's why we were confused. We couldn't figure out, because that gun was loud. But the deer, okay, 2 things about deer. Number 1, they are tough as hell. Number 2, they can be really, really stupid. Tough as hell story. So we're hunting on this other property at the closing weekend of firearm season. We would go over to this other property. It was about 450 acres. And we would do a deer drive. So we'd set 4 or 5 people up on one end of the property, and the rest of us would go over on the other, and we would do a deer drive and drive the deer towards the guys with the guns. Well, this year, Bill and I are on we're the shooters this year. It's our turn to be the shooters. And so we're sitting there. Bill, the expert, he put me in a spot where I could only see about 25 yards out in front of me. And I kept telling him, I kept trying to, he's about 50 yards away from me. I'm trying to tell him, I can't see. And he's like, no, stay put. So I stayed put, my first time being on the shooting line. And all of a sudden he starts going like this with his rifle. And I'm like, what? I can't see anything. And so finally he pulls his rifle up and he shoots. And 2 seconds after he shoots, this huge deer goes by. And when I say it went by, it went by about 5 feet. And this thing ran another probably 100 yards up. It was like uphill and into this timber. This thing ran up there, and it finally fell over. So we started tracking it, and there was blood spray about probably about hip height on a human on the trees going up this hill. And we got up there, and he had shot it and caught it on the front rib. He was using a 30-30. He caught it on the front rib, and it just went right down the side of the deer, and it opened up the entire side of it. It took all the ribs off that side and just eviscerated the deer. And you could literally we did not have to open the deer up to take the insides out. And so that thing should not have run more than 5 feet with the damage he did. But they're tough as hell. And as far as being stupid, yeah, Kentucky, I really wish I would have started hunting sooner, seriously. I started out with a borrowed SKS from my father-in-law. That was the first hunting I ever had, laying down in the middle of the field before the deer condo was up. And I really wish I would have done it sooner. But as far as being stupid, bucks when they go into the rut, they get dumb. Imagine how stupid you got over females when you were in your late teens, early 20s, and take that and amplify it by 100%. My buddy, Bill, he shot this doe and dropped it. And this shooter buck came along no more than 5 minutes later, and he shot it and dropped it. And they're within like 5 feet of each other. And so there was this third deer comes along. It's this buck. And it's this buck we had seen. And God, I wish I could remember its name. But you remember there was a Disney movie called Into the Wild, and it was about a bear that was a trained bear, but it got sent out into the wild, and it had a deer friend that had one antler. This deer had one antler, and we had seen it. We saw it earlier in the season, and it showed up, and it started pawing at the female, at the doe, and biting at it, and literally it was literally pulling chunks of hair out, trying to get the doe to stand up so he could mate with it. Yeah, dumb animals. Let's see. Out of all my guns, I still like my dad's 30-30 the best. I borrowed a 30-30 one time, and I don't know if it was just the gun or it's me, but 308's my hunting caliber. Once I bought my own hunting rifle. So I hunted with the borrowed SKS one time. Then we bought my son oh God, who makes it? But it's a single shot break action, and it's got 3 interchangeable barrels, and it's the youth version of this gun. It's called the Trifecta is what it is. But they had a 243 barrel in there, so I hunted with that one year. The third year I hunted with that one. I actually took a deer with it. That 243 round, I really like it. It's a nice flat shooting round. If I had the money to buy another bolt action rifle just to have, I would probably buy a 243. But then I started using 308, and I'm stuck on it. This year, unfortunately, my 308, when we moved, I didn't find it out till recently. The screws on the scope mount came loose from the gun, not the mount itself, but from the gun, so it was loose, and I just never got a chance to re-zero it. So a couple of years ago, I built a 300 blackout AR pistol specifically for hunting, because in Missouri they've got a alternative season, which is the muzzle loader / pistol / you actually use an atlat, which is the throwing stick. It's got the big long lever thing, and you use it to throw. You can actually use an atlat during that season. So I built a 300 blackout AR pistol, and I'm going to use that this year, because where I'm hunting over the next 3 or 4 days, it's seriously the longest shot I'm going to be able to take is probably 50, 60 yards, maybe, if that far. And the ballistics on that 300 blackout are almost identical to the 308 out to about 150 yards. And then the 300 blackout just drops like a rock past that. Not that the 308 ballistics are much better out to longer ranges, but I wouldn't pushing it at 150 yards, but at 50, 60 yards, I don't have a problem with it. In fact, I'm probably going to use iron sights on it. I've got a variable scope on it, but I'll probably just use iron sights, flip them up and look through the scope with those, because the range is so close. That, and I still haven't shot a deer with my 12 gauge. So I want to get a deer with my slug barrel on the 12 gauge. So if anybody else out there that you've got, it looks like there's only 4 of us or 5 of us in here right now. If you guys got a preferred hunting round or preferred, actually, when I say hunting, this is deer season, but we can talk about any hunting season whatsoever. I mean, this This is where you get to brag about what a great hunter you are, and we get to tell you how much of a liar you are and how full of stuff you are. So I'm gonna drop this in the drop that in the chat again. You guys feel free if you want to come up and talk. Feel free. Oh man, what's another good deer hunting story? Oh, the worst deer. The worst deer I ever cleaned. And if you know me personally, I've probably told this story 100 times. You probably already heard it. The worst deer. We're sitting up in the deer condo, and this doe comes up. And, she's not a very big doe, but it was Sunday, and there were still tags that needed to be filled. So it was a Sunday shooter. So we're up there, and Kelly gets up there first, and he's got it was Louis. Louis shoots first. He's got a broadside to this deer from like 100 and maybe at the most 125 yards. He's got a shot at this deer. He shoots at this deer. This deer doesn't even budge, doesn't move, doesn't even acknowledge that the shot was taken. So we're like, you suck. It's a chip shot. You suck. You get out of the way. So Kelly gets up there. Kelly's like, okay, I got this. I got this. Boom. Dude, the deer doesn't move, doesn't flinch, look like a statue. We're like, oh, God, Kelly, you suck too. Go zero your rifle. So I'm like, it's my turn. I'm like, oh, you guys just get out of the way. Let a professional do it. So by this time, this deer had turned. And I thought it looked like the deer was facing me, looking at me, kind of sideways. And I take this shot, and the deer falls over on its side. I'm like, see, that's the way it's done. You terrible. So we go down there to clean it, and we're looking at this deer, and Louis' round had gone right through both shoulders, right through the lungs, right through the heart. The deer should have been dead on the first shot. Kelly's shot had gone in right in front of the back thigh and gone right through its guts, which I don't know if anybody knows anything about cleaning a deer. A gut shot is the worst thing to clean. Second worst thing. My shot, the deer was actually turned away from me and was looking over its shoulder at us. My shot went in its left butt cheek and came out went through underneath the meat on the shoulder and come out the right front. We opened that deer up, and everything from its ass to its throat was liquefied. And we sat there and argued for 5 minutes about who was going to clean it. And it was finally decided, since my round was the one that killed it, that I was the one that had to clean it. So I get down there and I open this thing up, and the smell was so bad. I mean, it was worse than the inside of a chicken. And I'm like dry heaving because it was so bad. And they're like 10 feet away from me laughing at me. I got it cleaned up. We got it under a hose and got it cleaned up. It is actually pretty good meat. Okay, Jonathan says, I shot a doe with a 270 bolt action when I was young. I was more scared of shooting the rifle again after that than I was getting lost in the brush. You should never be afraid of shooting. 270 is not even a very big round, Jonathan. How old were you when that happened? That's one thing I don't understand, being afraid of a gun. Okay, this isn't a hunting story. This is actually a military story. But it's got to do with guns, and it translates into what we're talking about. So I was in ROTC, and I spent the summer after I graduated high school at Fort Knox in the ROTC basic summer camp. I was in the early commissioning program. I was 17. I was in there with a bunch of older dudes, but we went to the rifle range, and we were still using the M16A1s as for training. And there were people that never fired the rifle before, and they were afraid. I saw this firsthand. This drill instructor takes this AR, throws a 30-round magazine, or this M16, throws a 30-round magazine into it, and sticks it on his crotch and goes cyclic on it and dumps the entire 30-round magazine. And after seeing that, I'm like, how can anybody be afraid of a gun? I mean, yeah, 308 kind of kicks, 30-30 kicks, 30-06 kicks. Don't particularly enjoy shooting 500 Smith and Wesson revolver because it does you shoot 2 or 3 rounds, it does start hurting your wrist. But I could never understand being afraid of it. I had to stand on a stool in the blind to see out the window, and that gun knocked me off the stool with the. Oh, you know what? You must have been a small kid, man. You must have not had very much weight in the caboose there for that to knock you off the stool. I could imagine that happened. What'd your dad say when that happened? But yeah, so there's the choosing around. Yeah, I said Mark was hunting with that 400 Win Mag. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I would hunt white-tailed deer with something that big. Um, but it did the job once he did it. You know. Oh, excuse me. In fact, I heard people. He was, but I didn't remember. I'm sure your dad was laughing inside. Oh, excuse me. That's just whitetail deer. Love hunting them. I'd really like to go out west and do some elk hunting. Uh, Unfortunately, it's so expensive. In fact, Missouri just reintroduced elk about 6 years ago back into Missouri, and the flock in Missouri has intermingled with the flock in Tennessee, and I guess there's last I heard there's like 1,500 to 2,000 deer, or I'm sorry, elk uh, between Tennessee and Missouri. In fact, they just had last year or the year before somebody accident. Well, it was a 10-year-old girl that did it. So I'm pretty sure it was accidental, but she shot an elk and thinking it was a deer. So they were talking about opening up a lottery in Missouri for the elk hunt. Unfortunately, I'm an idiot, and I did not spend the $600 to buy a lifetime hunting license for Missouri before we moved over here, which was dumb. I had the money. I should have spent it. But yeah, so they're gonna be doing deer hunting over there. Um, the thing I like about Missouri is they've got black bear down in southern Missouri. They've got uh, pigs. They've got wild pigs in southern Missouri. Um, you got the white-tailed deer all over the state. Um, Actually, Missouri's probably one of the best kept hunting secrets as far as white-tailed deer go, because they got some pretty decent deer there. The problem they got in the state of Missouri is the chronic wasting disease. It's really prevalent north of the Missouri River. Um, Kansas, they were talking I had to take the hunter safety course in order to get my license to hunt in Kansas, and they were talking about CDW or CWD or whatever, chronic waste CWD, and what's that?
Ice and water.
Oh, Yoda's bringing me some ice and water. Yoda, come say hi. There's only 4 people in here.
Oh, okay. All right.
But Yoda used to make breakfast and send it with us.
Yeah.
She loved hunting season though, because I was gone all the time. I used to take the entire week off.
That was my shopping week. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Well,
I got half a day off tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Full day if I shoot a deer. I told the boss that I was not going to be in.
Mm-hmm.
If I shot a deer, because I gotta get it clean and gotta get it hung.
I'm in the middle of my show.
Okay, go watch your show.
Okay.
Go watch your show. Jonathan, we trapped 3 sows and a litter of about a dozen wild hogs one time. Cleaned the big ones and had hog for years. My mom told Dad, never get any more hogs. She was sick of it. I'll bet. Yeah, you know, and wild hog's not the same as domestic hog. It's not the same. I want to go down Oklahoma. They've got a couple places in Oklahoma. I do not like. Okay, so these places that have the fences up and they've got the feeders out, and you go sit, and they've got it on a timer, so the pigs are gonna come out at the same time, the same place every year. I do not want to do that. I want to go down. There's a couple places in Oklahoma that are like legitimate hunting places, and I want to go down there and try that out, or go down to Texas. The stories I heard about Texas are crazy. I want to go do the helicopter hunt in Texas, because when I was in the Marine Corps, I was forces, and I was a designated marksman team for the security forces, and we actually trained shooting from a helicopter, and I would uh, really like to see how well I do at it uh, for real hunting. Um, as far as hogs go, there was a place, the state of Missouri, 2 years ago, said you cannot hunt hogs on state property. It has to be private property. And the problem they were having was that the hillbillies figured out the conservation department would set up the pens, to capture the hogs, because they do a lot of damage to the crops. But they would set these pens up, and the hillbillies figured out where these pens were, and they figured out that they could go in and open the pens up, and then hunt the hogs there in that area, and they wouldn't have to go track them. So the conservation department got tired of them letting the pigs out. So they said, okay, no more hog hunting on state land. You got to do it on private land. But there's a place down there in southern Missouri that you can hog hunt with a spear. Personally, wild hogs, I really don't want to get that close to one. But to each their own. If you want to do that, more power to you, man. I wouldn't mind doing it with the air rifle. Oh, we got 3 people in here. Listen, guys, if I'm going too long or it's getting boring for you guys, say something. I wanted to do this. I was hoping I'd have some people up here on the panel with me, um, just so we could discuss it. But I enjoyed telling you hunting stories, seriously. And I've been at it over an hour, and it's what, 9:47, and I got to get up. I'm going to be out there at uh, probably about 5:30. Going to go out there, spend an hour. Uh, I think I'm going to hunt. I haven't decided yet. I've got this. It's really a cool thing. It's a fold up camp chair, but it's got a one man blind that you flip up over the top, and it turns into a blind, and the deer can't see you. It's got like the mesh in front of your chair. Uh, Take a hunting stick out there and use it as a brace. I can do that, or I've got a pad that I can put down on top of the new chicken coop, and I can see they go to the pond in the morning, and they cross up and down the tree line to the west of us, and I could shoot from either direction from top of the chicken coop. So I don't know. I'll figure it out in the morning. I'll figure it out in the morning. But listen, I really enjoyed telling you guys these stories, and thanks for showing up. Seriously, I was hoping more people would be here, but you know what? Small, intimate gatherings are much better than big groups. Know that from the garage. You know what? But oh my goodness. So I'll tell you what. I'm going to go for about another 10 minutes, and we'll see. We'll see if anybody pops in. Um, you know, if if you're yeah, Jonathan, you're going to go get ready for bed too. Jonathan, I may do some walk-in hunting too this week. Just so you know. And if I get some deer on the walk-in hunting, I'll share it with you, man. I know you were asking about someone you're up here, so I'll share it with you. Um, if Kentucky says that he hunted, and it's such a, how do I put it? So you got the bow hunters. The bow hunters will say rifle hunters aren't real hunters because all they're doing is ambushing people from trees. You know, there's no skill. There's no skill involved. You know, and the people that hunt with the rifles, oh, you know, you're not really hunting. You know, they stalk. They go stalk the animal. You're not really hunting if you're sitting in a tree stand because you know you're just ambushing the animals. You know, I look at it like this: do whatever you feel comfortable with. I guarantee you, the Native Americans, the reason why they started using rifles was because the bow was so inefficient. And if they could sit in one place and have the game come to them, I guarantee you that's what they were doing. You know, do not spend a lot of energy. If you trophy hunt, there's a lot of people that give trophy hunters grief. I am not a trophy hunter. I will shoot a trophy deer if I get a chance, but I'm not specifically looking for one. If that's what you want to do, as long as the meat's being used, if you're one of these guys that cuts the head off and leaves the carcass out there for the coyotes, yeah, I got a problem with that. You know, that's not that we are here to be conservationists. You know, the left gets mad at hunters because, oh, how could you kill these animals? Look, if you're hunting and you're being ethical about your hunting, the animal's death is it's way better than what happens to them in the wilderness if a coyote or a mountain lion gets to them. It's way better. Number two, it's way better than what happens to a cow that gives you your burger in the styrofoam and plastic at the grocery store. The death is way better. The meat, if you cook it right, some of the finest meat in the world. I would rather eat wild venison and bison or elk. I've had all three of them. I would rather have that any day of the week than some CAFO raised, store processed, injected GMO beef. Seriously, or the store bought pork or whatever. Same with pigs. You know, it just we do more. Ethical hunters do more to make the environment better than any liberal activist. Oh, there's Yoda. Yoda's popping in. Yes, Yoda was not a big fan of deer meat when we first got married, and when I first started hunting. Even because she grew up on jackrabbit. Yeah, jackrabbit's not. It's kind of hard to make jackrabbit taste good, but she learned how to prepare it properly. And that woman, I'm not as big as I am because she's a bad cook. I mean, she makes some of the best venison steak. Oh my gosh! In fact, her relatives are out in California, and coming from Kansas City, you know, we got some of the best beef in the world, and we were like, yeah, we can bring some venison. Every single one of us was like, nah, we don't, no, we're not eating wild game. No, you know, only steak for us. Oh, cottontails. But so we go out there and we filled the cooler half full of beef. And I don't remember if it was store bought or it was one that we had butchered, but we filled it half full of beef and half full of venison. And we got out there to California and she cooked a meal. And there must have been 15 people there, maybe more. So half the people got venison instead of steak. And she, being the devious little minx that she is, gave the people that complained the most about the venison or about eating venison the deer. And they were just they were all raving about how good it was. And 3/4 of the way through the meal, they weren't done. She made sure they weren't done. And she was like, she's just like Oprah. You got deer, and you got deer. And so she spread it around, and these people were completely shocked. So, you know, it's just the way you cook it. Same with the only thing I do not like goose or turkey. The only thing off of those that I like are the breast and the thighs. Everything else is just way too tough. And the same with the deer. You can always tell how good the summer's been for the deer. So over in Missouri, when the summers are really mild, there's a lot of acorns, and so they'll eat the acorns, and the meat will actually be really sweet tasting. When they're eating a bunch of soybeans and all that, you got to do a lot more prep on them to make them more tender and everything. Yeah, if you guys got any good venison recipes, when this is over, go into the comments down below and drop the recipe in there, okay? So, all right, we got 6 people. Go ahead, sound off if you're in here. I know Jonathan's in here and Angela's in here. Who else is in here right now? I want to know. We just lost somebody. I want to know who. There's probably Spags. Spags has been dropping on and off. I guarantee he's a little upset. A little upset right now because he sounded like he really wanted to be on this live. You know what, Kentucky Sustainable. I'm gonna get you up on a panel sometime to talk about hunting because I have a feeling you've got some really good hunting stories. Spags has always got issues. Even without the internet issues tonight, Spags has got issues. Oh, and I'll tell you what, man. So we were doing a community work day over at Mechanic Mike's place. We were putting insulation up on his metal building, and in fact, I think Tag did a video today. As a matter of fact, I think it dropped it today. He did a video about us putting the insulation up there, and Nowhere Homestead showed up, and he was a little late coming in because he was out bow hunting, and he naturally he said, "Oh, I missed a big deer," and so I started giving him grief. I was like, "Oh yeah, you got the shakes, didn't you?" He's like, "No, it was too far." I was like, "Oh, you're full of crap. You got the shakes." And then he turns around and he says, No, because I was like, "Oh, you got the shakes and you started doing this now, didn't you?" He said, "No, I had a crossbow." And I said, "Oh, okay." So the scope started doing like this. He said, and he finally goes, "Not on the first one. On the second one, yes." So everybody does it. Everybody does it. That very first, whether it's your first deer or your first big buck, everybody. Well, I asked Kentucky. I put the thing out there, but if you don't he doesn't have to come up. I mean, we're running on an hour and 12 minutes, and it's 9:57. So I really need to think about getting off here soon. I thought you had your shows to watch. Stop interrupting my live stream. Okay. So here's something about the garage that we used to hang out with or in. So it was usually Louis's place, and his second wife would come out there. We'd be having a good old time, and his second wife would pop out into the garage, and it was like you slammed on the brakes and everything came to a screeching halt. And as soon as she left, the conversation would start up again, and we started having a good time. So I'm glad that Yoda's in here, but this is a guy thing. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about too, don't you, Angela? Angela's not a big fan of this lady. Louis owned a company, and he had a lot of disposable income. In fact, he got married up at Sturgis, and he got married by Jesse James Dupree, who is the lead singer of the band Jackal. And I thought he was full of shit when he was talking to me. He was telling me about it, and he pulled out. He's got a framed picture of the wedding party with Jesse James standing right in the middle of the group. So he was telling the truth, and he showed me. I guess him and Jesse became pretty good friends, and they texted back and forth once smartphones became big. So that that's the type of guy he was. But he would do a 4th of July party. And before 9/11, you could buy Class C fireworks, which are the commercial, the if I remember correctly, it's anything above a 4-inch mortar. So he'd get these 6-inch and these 8-inch mortars. He'd have a 4th of July party where he would buy a big event tent. He actually bought a big event tent that he would use every year. He'd get it put up. He'd have a live band. That one year, we floated 15 kegs, and he would go down to Oklahoma. Before 9/11, you could buy Class C fireworks without a license, and he would spend $10,000 on fireworks, and we would have a fireworks display that rivaled all the small towns around us. In fact, people in these small towns around where we had the party could see the fireworks display. It was so big, and that kind of fell by the wayside. There there got to be an issue with undesirables and people that shouldn't be there popping in, but and then you had to have a Class C license to buy that type of fireworks after 9/11. But yeah, great guy. In fact, all those guys I hunted with were great guys. All right, okay. Anybody got anything else to say in the chat? I think Angela's right. It's nighttime. Need to sign off. Get some rest. Anybody got anything to say in chat? There's 5 of you in there. I really enjoyed talking to you guys and just telling these stories. Just being able to share my stories with people. It was just a lot of stupid stuff. I didn't even touch on the stupid stuff. But all right, man. We got Kansas January 1st. Is it January 1st or is it the week before? At the end of December, beginning of January, they've got the second portion of firearms season. So it might, if I can talk Spags into trying to live again. Actually, so the story behind Spags, he was not supposed to be hunting this weekend, and I hope I'm not divulging too much. He wasn't supposed to be hunting this weekend, but his wife was actually supposed to go hunting this weekend. Things happened. She couldn't go, so he ended up going and she didn't. So I am going to pressure him to let his wife go hunting at the second portion of the firearm season. So he has to stay home and take care of the homestead. So maybe we can get him on there because I know he's got I guarantee he's got some great hunting stories. That dude, him and Billy Bonds from Permanent Pasture Farm are two of the best storytellers I've ever met. And you get them together, and swear to God, you'll be squirting. You're laughing so hard. All right. So hey, all right. I'm gonna call this. I'm gonna bring this to a close. It's what is it? 10:02. Yeah, it's 10:02. We've been at it for an hour and 18 minutes, and I really enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope anybody that is watching this after the fact enjoyed it. Just everybody, take care. Be safe, go shoot a deer, and pursue a lifetime free.